Talking with the experts.
So that has definitely been part of the change that has been occurring. But in B2B, a lot of the changes were occurring even before the pandemic in terms of how business buyers buy, a lot of them wanting to do a lot more of their own independent research, talking to their own colleagues, etc. The whole pandemic, working remotely, really accelerated that whole process. But that's become a key component. What's happened over the past 12 to 18 months, Rose, is that there's been what I call a bit of content vomit. Everyone's been working from home. Everyone's been reading the same blogs on HubSpot, etc. Provide content. So there's been this mass influx of content, webinars, listicles, articles, blogs, that business decision makers are overwhelmed with too much information, all coming from trusted sources. But Rose says do X, Y, and Z. Michael says do E and F. Barbara says do A, Z, and Y. And so business decision makers are, what does all this mean? What makes sense for my business? So what business customers, business decision makers are really looking for is really what I call sense making and road mapping. They want companies, those companies to act as their partners, service providers, to say, out of all this noise, you really need to focus on A, E, and F. This is what it means for your business. This is what you need to do. And this is how we can help you meet your objectives. So it's really around helping them to make sense and navigate all that information, work through the nose, and really provide that roadmap. So being that advisor, that trusted advisor and partner to provide that roadmap and guidance is
Talking with the experts.
really what business customers are really looking for now.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name is Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. And Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. And you can find it on all good podcast streaming platforms and on YouTube. Excuse me, I've got to put my teeth back in. And it is my very great pleasure to introduce you to Michael Haynes from Listen, Innovate and Grow. And Michael is a small to medium enterprise, SME, in short for those who didn't know what SME meant. He's a business growth specialist and the author of Listen, Innovate, Grow. During his time working for Australia's largest telecommunications company, Telstra, as a customer research and strategy manager, he experienced firsthand how big corporations utilise innovation to increase growth with business customers. Now Michael empowers service-based small and medium companies with buyer-centric strategies to achieve the growth and impact they seek. Welcome, Michael, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're glad that I'm glad that we're both glad. Anyway, we're going to be discussing how small and medium-sized businesses are able to drive business growth by acquiring and retaining business clients. So the floor is yours. Tell me how you managed to get them to do that.
Okay, great question, Rose. So in a nutshell, my focus and passion is all about working with small, medium-sized businesses and how they can sell their products, services, and solutions to other businesses. And I particularly focus on service-based companies. So your professional service firms like your accountants, lawyers, IT companies, bankers, insurance folks, and how they sell to those other business customers, other organizations. There's lots of opportunities in order to be able to sell it in the world of B2B, as we like to call it. But it's very important that you understand the landscape, the playing field of B2B, because if you can do so, there can be great opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses to not only restart their businesses, but really to build and grow their businesses and take their businesses to the next level.
Yeah, now what about B2C, which is business to consumer?
Business to consumer, lots of opportunities there. That's not my particular area of focus. I really focus on working with those service-based companies on how they acquire business customers, because the dynamics of selling to businesses as opposed to consumers is quite different. Business to business, B2B presents significant opportunities, Rose, but there's also challenges One of the key differences being when you're selling to another organization. So if you're an IT company and let's say you want to get into Qantas and you want to get into the small business section of Qantas, it's not enough to understand just the company Qantas and the small business division. We need to understand who are the decision makers who are going to decide whether your IT firm is successful in getting in. And there are multiple people in that decision making. Hence, your marketing and sales efforts have to be, and how you deliver and support those customers has to cater to the needs of all of those decision makers. So it's a subtle distinction, but it's quite significant in terms of what businesses have to do when approaching business customers as opposed to the individual consumer.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I deal mainly business B2C. So for me, I guess it's a bit like apples and oranges, isn't it? You know, to servicing a client, a customer, to servicing a business, because you've got a larger range of people to deal with, and
yes,
so many more personalities and all that other stuff that comes along with it. So how do businesses deal with that dynamic?
So the key to selling into other businesses is that, again, you need to not only understand the customer, the company, but we need to understand who are those decision makers. So who are the decision makers in that organization? And typically, there's usually one or two key people that make the yes or no go decision. So we need to know who they are, what's their typical role and title. But then we also need to know who is influencing the decision. So again, to use my IT firm example, trying to sell into, let's say, Qantas small business division, the head of small business for Qantas Airways might be the key decision maker, but that person may rely on other people within the organization to provide their inputs as to who should be their IT service provider. So they may speak to their colleagues in finance, in risk and compliance, in operation, getting them to provide their inputs. So hence, you as that IT company, you need to be marketing to and educating not just that decision maker, but those other individuals that are going to be providing their insights, making their recommendations, and saying who should be the short list of those potential service providers.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of business owners who are selling to business make that mistake, and they only target their marketing at the high end, and they don't think about middle management or the lower management people that they might have to deal with, who are helping to make the decision to take them on board.
Yes, yeah, a very good point, Rose. Yeah, you need to be targeting not just who makes the decision, but those who are influencing the decision. Another error often that businesses make is that they'll often focus on the end user. So to use that IT firm example, they may often focus on what the business analysts, what some of the frontline staff in terms of the customer success team that's interacting with clients, will often focus on their needs in terms of features, benefits, technologies, not recognizing we need to understand what those senior decision makers are thinking about in terms of their key priorities and objectives, and making sure we demonstrate how our company, that IT firm, can deliver to those business objectives. As it's often that understanding and delivering to those business requirements and those business objectives, it often gets missed out. And that's how you miss out on opportunities to get into organizations, to cross-sell, to upsell, or when you focus just on the user end requirements, which are important, but we have to make sure we focus on decision maker requirements and priorities.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a missed opportunity when you don't market to the whole organization, because some people have to actually go into the coalface and try and talk these people into buying this, whatever it is that they're selling. So say it's a computer program, for instance, that the someone on the coalface are going to be using. Well, they've got to be able to test that before the decision maker makes a decision to buy it. So because the end user really has to be able to use it.
Yes, absolutely. And quite often in the decision making, again, there are multiple people involved. And so often some of those end users, so in an IT example, some of those business analysts, customer success managers, they may serve as influencers. So they're users, but they're also influencers, because often decision makers will rely on those frontline, those subject matter experts to provide their input. So it's very important that when you're an organization targeting business customers, you really have to do your research and homework to understand the company and also who are those key stakeholders. So you know what are those points, who are those individuals you need to target, and what you need to provide to them to help them make their decision. As business decision makers do a lot of research up front before they want to talk to any sales representative. And that's a key distinction, a key characteristic of business buying that's really been coming to the forefront over the past 12 to 18 months. They do a lot of independent research on their own before talking to a salesperson. So really your marketing and your sales efforts really have to be not about selling, but facilitating that buying decision process, making sure you provide the right tools, information, resources that those decision makers and influencers use as part of their purchase decision process.
Yeah, I think too that in the last 18 months or so, the buying process, systems, whatever, it has changed because we've had to all be more innovative, and because we haven't actually been able to work in the office for such a long time. I guess a lot of people are working from home now, so they've had to facilitate that transition from the office to the home.
Yes, that has definitely been part of the change that has been occurring. But in B2B, a lot of the changes were occurring even before the pandemic in terms of how business buyers buy, a lot of them wanting to do a lot more of their own independent research, talking to their own colleagues, etc. The whole pandemic, working remotely, really accelerated that whole process. But that's become a key component. What's happened over the past 12 to 18 months, Rose, is that there's been what I call a bit of content vomit. Everyone's been working from home. Everyone's been reading the same blogs on HubSpot, etc. Provide content. So there's been this mass influx of content, webinars, listicles, articles, blogs, that business decision makers are overwhelmed with too much information, all coming from trusted sources. But Rose says do X, Y, and Z. Michael says do E and F. Barbara says do A, Z, and Y. And so business decision makers are, what does all this mean? What makes sense for my business? So what business customers, business decision makers are really looking for is really what I call sense making and road mapping. They want companies, those companies to act as their partners, service providers, to say, out of all this noise, you really need to focus on A, E, and F. This is what it means for your business. This is what you need to do. And this is how we can help you meet your objectives. So it's really around helping them to make sense and navigate all that information, work through the nose, and really provide that roadmap. So being that advisor, that trusted advisor and partner to provide that roadmap and guidance is really what business customers are really looking for now, as opposed to just dumping more information, which they're quite overwhelmed with and are in some cases trying to steer away from, because they want certainty. They want to be able to navigate, to know, what do I need to do to move my business forward, to restart the business, to grow the business.
Yeah, I've noticed that marketing has changed, and even the way that they like teaching marketing now is a little bit different than what it was before the pandemic. It was, I don't know, because there's so much noise on the internet now. It's a lot noisier than it was 2 years ago. And, if you don't market correctly, then you're just going to get lost in it, in all the other stuff that's on the internet. And especially if that's how you start your marketing process, is through, cold calling or cold emailing or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yes, and so in terms of marketing and in terms of B2B marketing, there is a number of things that you need to be doing. And one of the first things that you really need to be doing, you need to be doing strategic marketing. I really have a bugbear with a lot of the marketing that's done that's very tactical. Your marketing needs to be strategic, which means it needs to be data-driven and it needs to be buyer-driven. And so the first thing that small business owners need to, well, all businesses need to be doing, but in the terms of our peeps, of small and medium-sized businesses, they need to be listening. getting an in-depth understanding of those industries, geographic markets that they're serving, those customers that they're serving. So really understanding what are their needs, what are their priorities, what's going on there. And you can do that through a variety of sources: online research, through your industry and professional associations, talking to your contacts, talking to your customers. But you really have to get that depth of understanding. And again, Rose, it's about understanding the buyers. Who are those decision makers within those organizations that you're currently serving, those that you seek to serve, what's important to them, and how they buy. That will drive what your marketing activities need to be and where you need to be visible. So it really needs to be strategic and buyer driven. And your sales now has to really work in conjunction, in collaboration with marketing, because buyers are doing a lot of their independent research. They're doing a lot of their research. And again, they're looking for that sense making, that road mapping. So marketing and sales have to work together. Marketing providing a lot of that insights and understanding around markets and customers, and sales to help facilitate those discussions when you start getting the breakthroughs and having those meetings, to really, again, be that advisor, partner, provide that roadmap for your clients.
I mean, even though, it's marketing sales as, progressed into the 21st century, in some ways it's regressed back to the 1980s when, there was no internet. And you had to go to, knock on doors to get a sale. If you're a salesman, you used to go and knock on businesses' doors and say, do you want to buy my telephone? And, it's become much more like that now, because back then business owners were quite smart and they would only buy from people that had a reputation, and when new players come on the market, it was really hard to get a sale if you didn't have a reputation.
So I would say, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I agree with what you're saying. I would say business buyers are very savvy now. And because of the internet, no one wants to be sold to, they want to buy. So they're going to do a lot of their research, and they want to go from trusted, reliable sources. So you're actually quite on point, from trusted, reliable sources. So they're going to do their own research. So your whole job as a small business owner, product service provider, is to really facilitate, again, and give buyers what they need, not just in terms of features, technologies, methodologies, but providing them with the kinds of information, tools, providing that roadmap to help them meet some of their broader objectives. You have to provide those tools and resources up front, demonstrate what happens after the sale. These are things that you have to be doing as part of your marketing and sales efforts up front, so that when buyers are looking for you, and they're going to do it independently on the internet, talking to their colleagues, so that you're found, they can educate themselves and they can distill what's important, what they need, and then they'll engage and seek you out once they've determined, okay, I've worked out 2/3 of the way that I think Rose is someone I want to speak to. I think she might be able to help me. Then you can start having those sales discussions where you really have to demonstrate, okay, and take it to that next level beyond what they can do with their own research, to really show what happens after the sale, how are you going to help them, and instill that certainty and confidence, because that's what business buyers are looking for now, especially given all this uncertainty and mayhem we've been going through. They don't want to have buyer's remorse. They want to know, if I engage that IT supplier, that accountant, that lawyer, they're going to help give me what I need and help me achieve what I need to achieve. So you have to really instill that confidence by demonstrating what happens after the sale and why and how you're going to make that change and benefit for them.
Oh, yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. Sellers have to be more transparent than ever before, I think, in their dealings and how they run their own businesses. There can't be any skeletons in the closet, so to speak. So, they've got to be pretty clean and pretty tidy, and so people can look through, the glass isn't dirty, they can see through the window.
Yeah, and it is quite a glass window. Great analogy, because thanks to the internet, you can Google, you can do your research, and
Don't you love Mr. Google? He just knows everything.
Yeah, and buyers are quite informed when they are coming to approaching you. I just had a meeting with a prospect yesterday, and the level of detail of what they went through in terms of some of my articles, podcasts, going through my LinkedIn, they were quite knowledgeable in terms around my areas of focus, what I could offer. It was a very detailed but very targeted discussion, like, oh my, you've really done your homework. So
Yes, I had one of those yesterday.
It's really it's very much as you use that analogy of having that glass door, and you have to have a fair bit of substance and what buyers are looking for behind that door, because they are doing a lot of lurking in the dark, peeking through those doors to see what you potentially have to offer.
Yeah, I was having a coaching session, well, a coaching interview, I guess you would call it, and said, I was told, geez, your online presence is really powerful, Rose, and you seem to be absolutely everywhere. And he said, but you don't seem like that in person. I said, what? I thought, okay, I'll stay away from that one. Anyway,
but that's exactly it, though. That's exactly it. Those roles, you do need to demonstrate that social proof that you are there and you're delivering value, and so people can really check you out and really build that confidence. They need to see that footprint, because that's what consumers are doing it, and now business buyers are doing that quite a bit. They're spending more time on doing their research. And like I said, they don't really want to talk to any sales rep until they've done their homework and on their terms when they want to do so.
Yeah, I agree. And it shouldn't, and it should have been like that years ago. Those pushy salesmen that come used to and buy this calendar, and we'll give you this much money off. And I can't tell you how many times my husband and I were stung. We had a shop up in Queensland on the Gold Coast, and there's more sharks out of the water than in it. I can tell you, it was either that or we were just totally plain gullible. I don't know, but.
And there's no room for that now, Rose. The days of show up and throw up, show up and make the pitch, those days are over now. It's really all about, it's from buyer enablement. It's really about helping it make it easy for buyers to buy on their terms and how they want to buy. So it's a complete flip, and it requires a whole different skill set, because it is about doing that, what I call that listening, which is listening through interaction and talking to customers and prospects and your strategic partners, but it's also doing that research and really gaining that understanding of those industries, markets, customers, and buyers that you're currently seeking to serve. You need to do that continuously and really making use of that in terms of what you deliver, how you deliver, and how you promote and engage with your customers. So it's a whole different way of operating, because it's really around, you sell the way buyers buy now. That's full stop. And that applies to the consumer context, but particularly in the B2B context. It's sell. Yeah,
well, as you alluded to before, businesses they're just too uncertain about the future, and they want to spend their money wisely. They don't want people just coming in and trying to sell them something that they don't need. The buyer's remorse that you were talking about before. I mean, and how many times as a consumer have we had buyer's remorse? Because we listened to the wrong people, or didn't do our research, which is what we should have done in the first place. But you think, oh no, it looks like a good deal, or sounds like a good deal, or and we take it on board with us. But businesses can't afford to do that anymore.
And Rose, you raised a very important point. It is those consumer behaviors and our consumer experiences now that are impacting our expectation as business owners, as business customers. That's exactly what has happened, which is why now in the B2B world, the expectations of business decision makers are very much driven from our consumer experiences. So we don't want buyer remorse. We don't want to be sold to. We don't want the pitch. We want to make sure we're making those right decisions, so we have that certainty, that confidence. Because we can't afford to be losing money, because for many of us, many businesses haven't been in operation for weeks, months, and they're trying to restart the business. Some want to take it to the next level, but we've got all this uncertainty of the new norm. We can't afford to be making bad choices, bad decisions.
No, especially what other people's, you're responsible for the welfare of other people within the organization.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, tell me, have you got any 3-step plan or 5-step plan that that B2Bs could be should be looking at to, I guess, make the business business transaction work better?
Sure. So when I'm working with clients, I use what is the name of my business: Listen, Innovate, Grow. Those are the 3 key activities that your small, medium businesses need to be doing in a buyer-centric way to acquire, retain those business clients, and ultimately grow the business. So I'll go through it really quickly. So listening, as I've alluded to before, is all about having that understanding really on 3 levels. Understanding, listening, what I call listening to you as the business owner, senior, business leader, understanding you and your company. So your goals, your vision, what are your strengths? So where is your company had successes in terms of, where are you making a lot of your revenues? What are the kinds of clients and customers you have that you really, love you, making, great recommendations for you, are really singing your praises? Where have you had success? Really gaining a strong understanding of where you're winning and where you want to go. Then you also need to do what I call listening to the market. So really understanding those industries, those geographic markets that you're operating in, and those that you want to operate in. What are the trends? How are they currently performing? What are some of the broad requirements, developments, what's going on in those industries and markets? What are your competitors doing within those industries and markets that you're currently operating, looking to operate in? The third level of listening is about listening to the business customers, understanding the buyers. So understanding those companies that you're going after, priorities and objectives, but again, understanding who are those decision makers in those organizations, what's their roles, what's their titles, and what's of them is important to them, what keeps them up at night, what are they focusing on, what are they seeking to do, and how do they make decisions? So listening on those three levels really gives you clarity as to where to focus. So as a small, medium business owner, CEO, what industries, markets, customers, and buyers should my company be focusing on? Then innovating is how we win. So based on understanding the business customer needs and customer priorities, where do we innovate? And by innovation, Rose, I'm not talking about new technologies and big disruptions. We don't need to be the next Steve Jobs, but where within our small, medium business can we make improvements and or new introductions across one or more of 5 areas? Are the things we can do around our products. So making product improvements, product extensions. Can we create comprehensive bundles? So for example, if you're the IT firm, can you marry up consulting with training with some advisory services to provide that comprehensive bundle for that corporate customer, for that mid-sized customer? Service innovation. So can we introduce new kinds of service improvements or new kinds of service introductions? Providing service and support, access to experts, for example. Organizational innovation. So can we engage in things like partnerships, joint ventures, strategic alliances in order to be able to get access to more companies and grow our business? That's one, Rose, that I think every small and medium-sized business in this environment should be looking at. Who can we collaborate with, be it current suppliers, current customers that we can collaborate with to build and grow our business to get access to those target customers. Then there's process innovation, which is, are there our internal processes within our organization we can improve upon around ordering, delivery, service and support. And then there's marketing innovation. What marketing strategies can we introduce to help us build and grow our business? In B2B, 2 that I really am big on that every small, medium business should consider is micro-influencer marketing. So that's all about finding who are the experts, who are the go-tos that your business decision makers look to when they're looking to make decisions. So let's say you're an engineering firm and you're working in a civil engineering space. Who do your clients go to? Are there certain industry associations, certain publications, certain events, certain blogs and podcasts that those decision makers go to when they're seeking engineering services and solutions? So you look across those 5 elements and see, based on industry customer need, where can we make changes, introductions to meet those customer needs, to acquire new customers, get current customers to spend more with you. So that's all about innovating. And then growing is how do you grow your business and maintain that growth? So are you going to go after new clients and customers? Are you going to offer new products? Are you going to go into new markets? Combinations thereof. We call those growth pathways. But then as the business is growing, so we're going from a 25-person IT accounting firm to 50 to 100, how are you managing that growth as you have more people, more processes, more complexity, more offices? So how are you managing that change? How are you managing your people, motivating your people to making sure that they're still being entrepreneurial, innovative, to making sure you're managing the people and the culture, and of course, managing your finances, because growing your business requires you to invest. It requires a lot of spend, but we've got to manage the finances. We're only getting so much revenue, but growth initiatives can take lots of money, so we have to manage the finances. So listen, innovate, grow, listening to know where to focus, innovate. What are the different things we can do to meet customer needs? And then how do we grow the business and manage the growth? 3 key activities we want to be doing on an ongoing basis to acquire, retain the customers, and hopefully grow the business to take it where you want to go.
Oh, wow. That was very succinct from your book. Your book's called Listen, Innovate and Grow. And where can our clients, customers, listeners and watchers, viewers go and purchase your book?
So you can find my book at any major bookstore. So, it's on Amazon here in Australia, likes of Booktopia, Demix. You can also go onto my website, listeninnovategrow.com. There is a repository for lots of articles, videos, tools and templates, which they can download and educate and learn them about the different elements around how to listen, innovate, and grow as well.
Wonderful. And do you have a podcast? I didn't read that anywhere.
No, I don't have a podcast. I tend to be on the podcast circuit quite a bit. So I'm on a number of podcasts, particularly those pertaining to business growth and in the B2B space. And you can find a lot of my interviews if you go on to listeninnovategrow.com/media. You'll see my articles that I've been in publications, as well as the various podcasts that I've been on talking about some of these various elements around driving business growth.
But I feel very privileged to have had you on my little podcast, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
And I just quietly, people, he's on LinkedIn, he's on Facebook, and he's on Twitter. So just go and stalk him on any of those as well.
Yes, and I'm very active in particular on LinkedIn. And any questions, please reach out. More than happy to answer.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time. It was very enlightening. Actually, I didn't quite understand about the business to business because I don't deal in that sort of area. So yeah, it was really enlightening, and it's opened my eyes to some strategies that I could use for the business to consumer.
Absolutely. Business to business, massive opportunities for us small and medium business folk. Long-term contracts, larger revenues, but you just really need to understand the dynamics of B2B. And it's all about enabling the buyers, understanding them and enabling them based on what they want, what they're looking for. That's the key to success. And so I hope everyone's found that useful.
And a good place to start is to get their annual reports.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a gold mine of information. Absolutely. Yeah. Those company reports and presentations are a good listening point to really understand, especially when you're targeting mid-market and larger organizations. Fantastic recommendation, Rose. Great starting point.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I shall talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
Talking with the experts.